Welcome everybody, thanks for joining me. My name's Craig and I'm doing a follow-up video today from one that I did 12 months ago, which is to do with some hearing damage that I received last year. And this was from having a microsuction procedure done, which is the air suction procedure to remove earwax from the ear canal. And I did a video on this last year back in August because I thought it might help a few people out there who perhaps are experiencing or have experienced similar symptoms to what I was experiencing. And basically what it was is I had some earwax removed, which is usually pretty simple procedure, but I had it done using the microsuction procedure, which is normally done at a proper clinic, which it was done by a nurse at a clinic. And the noise from that procedure was very, very loud, and it was after I had the procedure done that I noticed some strange effect to my hearing in my right ear. So it's been pretty much a journey over the past 12 months trying to get to the bottom of all this and just trying to work beyond it and just move through it, basically. Because as a musician or a performing musician, it's really important, obviously, to have good hearing. And when something goes wrong with your hearing, that can just throw you completely in reverse, and you don't know which way to turn. And that's how I felt. So I'm hoping that this follow-up video will help some people who perhaps are having similar issues with their hearing. It doesn't have to be exactly the same problem, but you might be experiencing hearing problems such as maybe hyperacusis or maybe just general hearing loss. And especially if you are a musician, perhaps you can relate to some of these things. But anyway, where I'm at now, 12 months down the line, well, actually it's been 15 months since the injury, since I had this microsuction procedure to remove earwax. And it's been a year since I've done the video last year, which was back in August. And everything's really come along really well since then. I feel like I've almost come full circle, whereby I'm almost back to how I was with my hearing, which is great news, obviously. It's been very up and down throughout, and if you look at my video, which I'll provide a link to in the description below this video, if you have a look at the previous one, you'll read in the comments, or at least my reply to people's comments, that it has been very much like this in terms of the recovery process. But the good news is right now, today, today is the 10th of August, so as it stands, everything is going pretty well, and the hearing I feel like it's almost back to normal now in this ear, which is great news because it's been bothering me for a long time. So where I'm at with it, okay, a month ago I had a follow-up hearing test with an audiologist. So I went to the clinic and had the usual hearing test done, and I've got the results here, and I'm just going to post those up on the screen, which you'll be able to see in the video there. And it looked like pretty good news. Basically what it turned out was that that there was a slight improvement in the high frequencies in my right ear. Now if you look at the comparison chart there, you'll see that back in May last year, so May 2021, when I first had a hearing test after having this microsuction procedure, you'll see that there was quite a dip in the high frequencies. And then 5 weeks later in June, I had another test done and there was a slight improvement. And then 14 months after that, or 14 months after the first injury, so July 2022, 14 months following the first test that was done back in May last year, there's been quite an improvement there in the high frequencies. So that's good news, I think, and I think it proves really that your hearing, if you have a little bit of hearing damage, there is a chance that it can come back, or you can come back from it. So that's the takeaway message that I want to leave with this video, really. If nothing else, I think the thing to keep in mind is it is possible, I believe anyway, to overcome hearing issues if under certain circumstances. And my philosophy throughout this whole journey has been just to carry on as normal and not stop doing what I love doing. So I've continued playing music, I've continued performing, I've continued playing the piano and singing and all that, and I've just had to make some adjustments throughout the past 12 months in order to keep doing that without getting too distracted by hearing issues. But I feel like I'm at the point now where most of those issues have now dissipated, and I'm almost back to where I was before I had the injury. So I think that's the thing to focus on, everybody, is just to look past the problems and that you're having, or not look past it, but look ahead and just realize that if you just keep focusing on what you enjoy doing and not get too distracted by, I know it's easy said and done, but not getting too distracted by, subtle changes in your hearing. Just to focus on particular tasks that you enjoy doing, and to look after your hearing as well, of course, throughout that whole process. I've talked about that obviously in the previous video, but I'm going to go over a couple of other things. Now, what happened to me last month, which is really the main reason why I got this updated hearing test, was that I realised that my ear canal was getting blocked again with earwax, which isn't very nice, obviously, but it's perfectly normal. But some people get it more often than others, and I seem to have this problem where I build it up quite quickly. And I noticed that my ear was getting blocked again, so I went and saw the doctor because I was really a little bit worried about just going and having my ears cleaned, or, well, I wasn't going to do that anyway straight off without talking to a doctor first. So I went and saw the GP, and he prescribed me with some drops. These ones are called Sofradex, Sofradex. And normally I think they are prescribed for an ear infection, but apparently I think they can be used as well to help dislodge earwax. Well, they certainly did that. I put these eardrops in my right ear, which is the one that was starting to block up with earwax. So, I could really feel it. As soon as I put the drops in, I went completely deaf. I was like, I put the drops in, then all of a sudden I couldn't hear a thing out of this right ear. Everything just went. And me being me, I went into a bit of a panic, and I was like, what the heck's happened? Why is my hearing all of a sudden gone in this ear just from putting eardrops in? Now, looking back, it's obvious why that was, and the reason is because the eardrops dislodged the wax, and the wax moved within the canal and actually completely blocked the ear canal, right against the eardrum, in fact. So that was the actual reason. But I didn't really know that for sure at the time, so I kind of panicked. And so this was later in the day. Well, no, it was in the evening, and I put the eardrops in, just before going to bed, and I could not sleep that night because I was just worried the whole night about the fact that I couldn't hear anything, like literally nothing out of this ear. And I had a music gig booked the following day, and I had to be somewhere to do some music entertainment, and I thought, well, how am I going to do this with just one ear? And so that sent me into a bit of a panic. And I ended up ringing the doctor's surgery the next day and got an appointment with the GP. And long story short, well, I got it sorted out anyway, and I'll explain what happened with that. But anyway, the main issue was that I couldn't hear anything out of this ear. And if anyone's ever had that experience, it's really, really off-putting only being able to hear out of one ear. I never realised actually how easy it is to take your hearing for granted. You just naturally get used to hearing out of both ears, and you don't even think twice about it. But not being able to hear out of one ear, and only being able to hear, just having basically monaural, is that how you say it? I think monaural hearing. Only being able to hear out of one side, it's really a strange feeling, and it's hard. It's just hard going about daily activities with not being able to hear, basically 180 degrees, I suppose. So I was like, what am I going to do? Because I've got to play this gig. I can't do this with hearing in just one ear, or at least I won't be able to do it very well. Obviously, if you're used to it, it's probably not such an issue, but I'd never experienced that before. So anyway, I raced off to the doctor, went into a bit of a panic. They pretty much confirmed that it was probably due to the earwax blocking the ear canal completely. And so the problem I had was, of course, that because I had to get to this gig that same day, I was like, well, what am I going to do? Because I need to get this wax removed. And I was really concerned about having microsuctioning done again, because as I would have said in my previous video, I was like, no way I was going to go and do that again. I just didn't want to risk it. So I talked to the doctor about it, and what they ended up doing was writing a letter, which I was going to take to a clinic, the audiologist clinic actually, and see if with a doctor's letter I could encourage them to do a procedure very gently to remove the earwax. So rather than just turning up at a clinic and get my ears cleaned out without actually having any referral, I wanted to get a proper referral from the doctor so the clinic would have an explanation of what they needed to do. I know it sounds probably a little bit pedantic, but it was the only way I could figure out to actually build up the courage, I suppose, to go and have my ears cleaned out, given the problems I had last year. So that's what I ended up doing. I got a letter from the doctor. I went to the clinic, managed to get an appointment, which was really, really lucky because it was the end of the week, very busy. on a Friday actually, Friday afternoon, and got the appointment, and I spoke to the nurse and I said, look, I had this problem last year. I received some hearing damage. Can you remove this earwax very, very gently? And is there any way you can do it just bit by bit, just because I don't want to have this problem again? So I have to admit, and this goes against what I said, but I have to admit I got the suctioning procedure done, but this was at a different clinic to where I went last year, and it was with obviously a different nurse as well. So I felt a bit more confident dealing with someone different, who I figured or hoped would be a bit more careful with the procedure. So they did that for me, and they did it very slowly, bit by bit, and it was successful. She removed the earwax, perfect. I was able to hear out of this ear again because it was totally blocked. And ever since then, my hearing's been it's actually been really great. Obviously, having the earwax removed has made my hearing, it's fixed the hearing. But I've also noticed that the distortion and the buzzing that I was experiencing last year has also largely disappeared now. And whether or not that was because I had some extra wax removed or something, I don't know. But ever since having that done, everything's been a lot better. Because that is the problem I was having. I was getting this distortion, or this distorted buzzing noise on certain, especially when playing the piano, with certain frequencies on the piano, certain harmonics, like the overtones, I suppose you call them, when you're playing notes on the piano. They would cause this buzzing distortion noise in my right ear, really off-putting. And I've noticed that it's really almost disappeared now. There's still a little bit there, especially sometimes when I play an acoustic piano or a grand piano. But I'll talk about that in a moment, about how I've got around that. But it has mostly gone. So yeah, it's all very strange how it's all come full circle since last year. But what I know is that it's all down to time as well. You've got to give yourself time to heal when you receive this sort of injury, or any sort of injury really. It does take time. And there's never going to be an instantaneous fix. So this has been something that's gradually, I think, improved. Bear in mind, sort of up and down, but it has improved gradually over the past 12 months to the point now where this buzzing and distortion has mostly gone away, or I'm simply just not really noticing it now. So that's great news. That's really encouraging. So let's see what I've got here. So what I ended up doing anyway was I ended up sending away and having some proper in-ear monitors made, which I've got here in this case. So these are professional in-ear monitors, which are similar to earphones, because that's pretty much what they do. That's the function they serve. They sit in your ear, and they're there obviously for monitoring music. But obviously professional musicians use these specifically for performing, and you can obviously get ones that just sit in your ear, that just generic ones you can buy from the music store, but these ones are actually molded and made to fit. Now, as I talked about in my video last year, I had some silicone earplugs made, and these were made from molds that were done at the audiologist clinic. Okay, so I've got these here, the silicone earplugs, and I use 10 dB filters, which is the lowest attenuation that you can get, because I didn't want them to block out too much sound, because that can be a bit off-putting if you block out too much sound. I mean, it really depends what you're using them for, but if it's for playing music, you really don't want to block out too much, but also you do want to block out enough that it is going to be effective. So anyway, these have got 10 dB filters in. Now, I have found these really good for listening to live music. If I'm going to, say, whether it's just a club or a bar or something, and just listening to a band, that's when I find these good. But I don't find them so good for performing. It's just a little bit too off-putting, having that sort of muffled sound, or at least, it's just not good for monitoring, relying on just earplugs alone. So I decided to invest in some proper in-ear monitors. So these are them here. I'll show you the case. They're just sort of packed away at the moment, but they have a cable, so they're not wireless, so they're not the most expensive type. But these just plug in via a standard jack plug. Okay, and I've got these set up with 10 dB filters as well, so they've got the same level of attenuation as the earplugs. But of course the difference is you can monitor music and everything else through these. So they're basically like an earphone and a earplug combined. That's probably the way to look at it. And I have found them to be quite useful, or really useful in certain environments. And the place that I find them useful is when you're dealing with a room full of people and there's a lot of, especially if you're playing music to a crowd and there's lots of talking and lots of other noise going on. These are really good for being able to hear yourself and get absorbed in the music. If you're playing to a group of people who are just sitting there quietly listening to you, that's fine. That's more straightforward in terms of being able to hear what you're doing. But when you've got a noisy room, that's when I find these really good. And also I've tried using them with playing a grand piano, because as I mentioned before, it was using the piano, playing an acoustic piano was where I was starting to notice this buzzing problem a bit more. So that was the reason, that was really the main reason I got these, was because I wanted to figure out a way that I could actually soften the sound of the piano plus be able to hear better what I was playing. And so the way that I do that is I have all the music, backing tracks, my vocals, even the piano. I can put a microphone inside the piano and mic it up, send it through a mixing desk, and just monitor that through these earphones. And at the same time, with the 10 dB filter, they actually soften all the background noise. So you get the best of both worlds, if you see what I mean. Now, these are Westone EAS 10s, if anyone's interested. You can go online and read about those. So they're actually made in the States. I'm based in New Zealand here, so I went to a local company here, and they actually had to obviously order them from overseas. They were actually made in America and shipped back over to New Zealand here. So it took about 6 weeks to get, but it was worth waiting for. And also they're a different design. The earplugs are silicon, whereas these here, these in-ear monitors are acrylic. So they're a solid acrylic material. And I guess because they're a bit more firm, a bit harder, they perhaps don't, they just have a different way of blocking out sound. So in terms of blocking out sound and performing, these are definitely a lot better. So hopefully that all makes sense. And so I really recommend in-ear monitors, even if you don't have hearing issues. They're just really good to have. They allow you to get absorbed into the sound and you just become part of the music. So it's worth the investment. I paid $700, that's New Zealand dollars for these, but that's around about 450 US dollars. And so that's right at the bottom end of the scale. I mean, you can spend thousands on these things. But I got the basic ones, the EAS 10s. They just have one driver. So you can obviously get ones that have multiple drivers, 2, 3, or however many in each left and right. Which the more you have, I think it just means the better quality and the more and the greater frequency range they can cover if they have more drivers in each one. But I just got the most basic ones. And they're fine. They're perfectly fine. I mean, there's perhaps not as much bass as what you might get in a more expensive set, but I can adjust that anyway on the mixing console. I can add extra EQ if I need to. So I don't find that an issue. So they're really good. And if you've got any questions about those, feel free to drop a message in the comments, and I'll try and help you with that. So really, that's it. All in all, everything's looking pretty good now, and I'm pretty much happy where everything's at. When I went to the clinic, the nurse actually gave me, or I purchased actually some of this almond oil, which has got a dropper with it, so you can actually, she recommended doing that once every couple of weeks, just to keep things moving in the air, because sometimes if the wax doesn't move, see, wax naturally finds its way out of the air, and earwax is a good thing. It's there for a purpose, and it naturally finds its way out on its own. But if it doesn't, or if it has a habit of building up, a drop or two into each ear just to keep on top of all that. So I've got that. That's just an extra tool. But yeah, all in all, it's just all about looking after your hearing. Super important. I've come to realize that now more and more. I'm just very wary of exposing myself to constant loud noise, which I used to do quite a lot with headphones, especially. Just listening to the piano, listening to music, it just become habitual, just turning the volume up and actually just not realizing how loud it really was. And so I've kind of stopped doing that now, just because I want to look after my hearing, and I don't want to lose, especially those high frequencies. I don't want to lose that, and it's very important, to have good hearing as a performer. So that's really the message there with hearing. Just keep looking after it. All those things I talked about are just useful tools to have. And it may involve spending a bit of money, but it really is worth it, because if you start having hearing issues, it can end up being a very expensive thing to try and get on top of. So best to look after your hearing as much as you can, because once it's gone, for a lot of people, once it's gone, it's gone. And I certainly, I'm definitely not going to take it for granted anymore. So yeah, that's great. Well, that's all I have to say, really. Thanks for sticking around for this video. I know it's not that exciting, but I did say I was going to do an update, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you've got any. And if I think of anything else, I might add some more to this video, or put something else in the comments or in the description box below. But in the meantime, stick around for the next video. I'm not sure what that'll be. I just tend to put videos up every now and again when I'm feeling inspired, but I've got a few things I'm working on, so keep an eye on the channel, and you'll probably see a new video going up soon. Oh, well, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining me in this one. And if you've got any questions, let me know, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.